Hello BookTube, this is Weekly Reads. As I mentioned in my first unhaul video last night, there is a chance of severe weather later this afternoon and evening during the time when I normally film Weekly Reads, so I'm doing Weekly Reads earlier. An added complication is that I'm also planning on making the dough for the pie crust that I will be using to make a pecan pie tomorrow for my birthday. So it might not go well because this will be the second time I've ever tried to make a pie crust. And that first time was like 20 years ago. So, or more than 20 years ago now. So, yeah. And this video is likely to already have enough ranting to add me being upset about pie crusts. So we're doing this early. Although on Monday, I will let you know how the pie turned out. I will have, or next Weekly Reads, actually. I will take photos of the pecan pie, as well as the pie I will be making for my mom's birthday next Friday. So anyway, that's the plan. Anyway, so my reading week this week has been rather schizophrenic. I started the reading week, or really the reading weekend, with the intention of revisiting a science fiction anthology that I did not get on with the first time I had a go at it. And it did not go well at all. Although my reading week did markedly improve once I got to Nonfiction November, which is why Nonfiction November is by far my favorite BookTube reading event. But first, let's talk about the crappy science fiction I read on Saturday, or really bailed on Saturday, I should say. So the book I intended to read Saturday and Sunday was A People's Future of the United States, edited by Victor LaValle and John Joseph Adams. This anthology is inspired by A People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn, which is a history of the United States that is especially popular amongst progressives and progressive creatives, progressive artists. And it came out in 2019, or the book did. A People's History came out like 20 plus years ago. And I read it in early 2020 during that time when I started to lose interest in science fiction and fantasy, and I didn't get on with the anthology then. I bailed on it after dipping into a number of stories, and well, that's what happened this time too. I had about as much success this time as last time, if not less. Anyway, so what I read, the stories were on the whole poorly built. The world building was annoying. The plots were, well, probably didn't last long enough to figure out what the plots were. The characters, the writing was just no. So, for example, the first story in the anthology, The Bookstore at the End of America by Charlie Jane Anders, is about a bookstore that's on the border of an independent California and what's left of the United States. The Californians are depicted as your standard sci-fi society. They're into body modification, they're technological, so on and so forth. The Americans, on the other hand, are decidedly retro. Very 1980s, 1990s in feel. And that difference is reflected in the bookstore. There are two entrances for both sides. The books nearest the entrances are geared more towards that sort of stereotype of both sides. And then in the middle are generally books that everybody would normally enjoy. Before I had enough of the story, a customer from California came in looking for a specific book, which was sold to somebody on the American side. And somehow or other, while the California side is updated, it's computerized, the American side is like Hobby Lobby, which is weird because, I mean, aren't most stores, even independent bookstores that have have online databases, are in some way, shape, or form, particularly one like this that is connected? It bugged me. It bugged me. And everything is just, and I don't think there is really much of a plot or one that I could discern before I gave it up. It was like a mishmash of vignettes, and it bugged me. The second story, wait, I think the wall was about, I think it's about a young woman who, or non-binary individual, I should say, who is, yeah, it's about a non-binary individual who has to take a mandatory citizen bonus exam, and it's like, it just, I didn't like the writing, and and that's pretty much like the whole of the anthology, what I read of it. And then there's what I dipped into of the story by Sam J. Miller. What was it called? It was Saturday Night, I Guess It Makes It All Right, which is basically about two tech installers, one of whom is closeted and in love with his coworker, and eventually they probably get drunk and do it, or somehow or other, or he does it with somebody. And it didn't feel like tomorrow or tomorrow decades from now. It felt like yesterday, a few decades ago. It's just I just do not like this anthology at all. So at some point or other, its next appearance will be in an unhaul. Being a glutton for punishment, I decided to stick with science fiction and fantasy for the rest of Saturday. So I went from a near contemporary science fiction anthology to a more classic collection of short story, The Best of Fritz Leiber by Fritz Leiber. And I had about as much success as I had with The People's Future of the United States. I dipped into two stories before I gave it up, which I know I probably should have tried to stick it out, but it just did not appeal to me at all. And I think I was in some kind of like, I mean, when I get to like when I bail, and I really do not like what I'm reading, there's a possibility that anything I read that day it's going to escalate. I'm not going to enjoy anything that day, which is what happened. I pretty much bailed on everything Saturday, but I dipped into Gonna Roll the Bones, which is about a gambler who's an abusive jerk that, yeah, again, it read dated, which is a problem I do have with a lot of classic science, older science fiction, is that they kind of date for me a little too much. And then I think I might have dipped into Sanity, but I don't really recall much of that. So, and I guess the thing with The Best of Fritz Leiber is I've had this collection for about 10 years now, give or take. And I finally got around to it, and yeah, didn't care for it much. And then I dipped into The Warrior of World's End, Book 1 of the Gondwain epic by Lynn Carter. This is a sword and sorcery epic science fantasy about Last Continent on Earth, sort of inspired by Jack Vance's Dying Earth series and Clark Ashton Smith's Zothique, although I don't really recall much of the Dying Earth because I haven't really read any of it. I think maybe one story in that series. I've read a bit more of Zothique, but Lynn Carter is no Clark Ashton Smith. Try as he might. Clark Ashton Smith can do some awesome purple prose, and Lynn Carter just comes off as pretentious. It was bad. Just bad. So next time you see that book, it will be unhauled. So by that point, I had the sense to just stop on Saturday. I was very much upset. I was at the point where I wanted to box up all of my science fiction and fantasy and get rid of it. And it was an overreaction, yes. But I do really need to go through my science fiction and fantasy and decide, okay, I'm going to keep the books I really like and those that I know I'm going to get to. But the books that I haven't got to, that I'm pretty sure I'm not going to get to, the books that I read, I liked, I didn't love them, they were just okay, and the books that I really, really don't like or bailed on, I really need to send those out. I need to pass them along. I really should not have them in my collection, especially given how premium the space is in my personal library. I only really have my bedroom, which is my little book room, as well as a bit of the hall. And science fiction really should be a bookcase, not a wall, as history is. But anyway, I'll talk a bit about that because that's part of how I spent my Sunday after I read selected poems by William Carlos Williams, which I got in that Saturday. So as I mentioned when I hauled William Carlos Williams on Monday, I read this collection in college. It was the cornerstone book of a class on modern American poetry, and I don't really recall much of my reaction to the collection at the from the time. William Carlos Williams is a poet that I like. I don't necessarily love. He does have a number of poems that I really enjoy and a lot that don't quite do anything for me. And reading this collection, it did do what I had hoped it would do, which was it's palate cleansed. It sort of purged the aftertaste of Saturday, of those of A People's Future of the United States, The Best of Fritz Leiber, and The Warrior at World's End. So that was great. And it was nice to revisit old poems that I really enjoyed. Red Wheelbarrow, Lonely Street, the Burgell poems. But also reading this collection, I kind of started, I'm not entirely sure about some of the editor Charles Tomlinson's choices, particularly Patterson at the end. I'm not entirely sure the selections were the right choice or even having it in there. Now, admittedly, I'm pretty sure I used to have Patterson, which is William Carlos Williams's long poem to the New Jersey city of Patterson. but I don't know if I've ever read the whole thing. I don't really remember. I don't have it anymore. I might pick it up at some point. I don't know. But anyway, but I did enjoy revisiting William Carlos Williams. It was quite a bit of fun, even if I didn't necessarily love everything I read. So Monday, I know I mentioned last weekly reads that I was going to touch on some manga before Nonfiction November, and I didn't decide. I decided not to do that. I instead dipped into some cookbooks, like I mentioned earlier. Later on today, I will be making the pie dough for two pies that I will be baking. Um, later this week, well, tomorrow and then on next Friday, as well as dipping into the recipes for both the pecan pie and the coconut cream pie, as well as I dipped into a few other cookbooks because I needed, I think, a further palate cleanse. And I don't know, I just have this weird thing with manga that when I read manga, I absolutely love it. But there's also this resistance that I have that I don't quite understand, that I really need to analyze a bit more and probably do as a separate discussion video when I get around to it. Because, I mean, that's sort of why I haven't bit the bullet and picked up the last 9 volumes of Fairy Tale, which I could easily do, but I haven't yet. Anyway, moving on to Nonfiction November. I started on Weaver's Scribes and Kings, A New History of the Ancient Near East by Amanda H. Podany, and I am loving this book. This is a history of the Near East, the area that is like Mesopotamia, the Levant, Anatolia, with some dips into Egypt and further east to Afghanistan and the Indus Valley, and I'm loving it. It is phenomenal. I especially like how Podany touches on the lives of some of the people who are mentioned in the innumerable cuneiform inscriptions and sort of spins off bits of who they were, what they were doing, what their lives were like, and it is wonderful. I especially love the chapter on Ebla, on Isin and Larsa. I really am enjoying it, and I'm looking forward to talking a lot more about this book next week when I will have finished it. I'm about halfway through now. I'll get a bit more read tonight. I don't know exactly how much I'll get to read tomorrow because I have company coming over, family. Like I mentioned last night, my aunts are coming to visit my mom, and it's kind of sort of a bit of a birthday party for me too, but mostly it's to see my mom. And I will possibly be going out to a bookstore, so not entirely sure how much I'll get read tomorrow. Hopefully it'll be quite a bit, but I'm pretty sure I will at least finish the book on Sunday. My goal is to finish it on Sunday, and I'm really enjoying it. I cannot wait to review it for Open Letters. After I finish Weaver, Scribes, and Kings, I will be moving on to Egypt's Golden Couple, When Akhenaten and Nefertiti Were Gods on Earth, by Darnell and Colleen Darnell. This is a look at the reign of Akhenaten and his relationship with his primary queen Nefertiti during their tumultuous and heretical reign in Egypt. I'm really looking forward to it. Obviously, this isn't hauling it. I will probably wait until the end of the month to do my hauls from now on. But I'll talk about it before then. anyway, so looking forward to getting to this, which I will start on Monday. And if, although depending when I finish Weaver, Scribes, and Kings, I might start it on Sunday, but the plan is at least to start it on Monday. And then after Egypt's Golden Couple, I will be reading Lives of the Ancient Egyptians by Toby Wilkinson, which I'm also looking forward to. I've enjoyed Toby Wilkinson's work, and I'm pretty sure I will enjoy this as well. So that's my reading plan for next week. Backtracking a bit to after I finished Selected Poems by William Carlos Williams. And I think I mentioned this earlier this week. I decided to switch bookcases. So obviously the bookcase that I had here for quite a while, a little wood one that had an open-ended sort of edge. I moved into the hall, and I moved the bookcase that I had in the hall in here, which is this big bookcase here, because I recognized that I'm running out of space for history. That other bookcase only had two bookshelves left. And I either would have to eventually buy another bookcase or switch, which would be problematic because at the end of this wall is the door to the bathroom. And if obviously I buy a too big bookcase, it's going to impede the swing of the door. So I decided, well, the idea came to me that, well, maybe if I just switch these two bookcases, this one being the last of the history wall, it wouldn't impede the swing of the door, which it doesn't. So that worked out fantastically. And there's enough space that I might be able to put some boxes or something that might not impede the swing of the door either. So then I moved the other bookcase into the hall. Initially, I was going to put the manga on it, and that didn't turn out well at all. It was too crowded and too difficult to get to the books. So then I decided to move the manga back to where they were, but then that's led to trying to figure out what to do with the classics, canonical, modern, contemporary fiction, poetry, drama, which I might be moving to where the science fiction is, which then raises the question of what to do with so much science fiction and fantasy. Generally, they're going to be going into boxes, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to obviously separate them. The books that will be going on the shelves are those that I know I want to keep and those that I know I'm going to get to, and hopefully not relatively quickly, even though my desire to read science fiction and fantasy is at an incredibly low ebb right now. I'm going to try to read it anyway. Everything else I'm likely going to box up, although I think what I'm going to do is with an idea to send it on, and then basically to put the ex-library copies into a specific box and then donate them to the friends of the library book sale. Some of the rest either box up with an idea to maybe try to sell to PALS, the independent bookstore in Portland, or to sell to Golden's, the bookstore in Waco, that used bookstore in Waco, that I love, even though I haven't been there in like 3 years. Anyway, so that's something that's going to be coming up in the future, and ideally I will, when I do decide to unhaul these books, I will try to make videos of them so that I can kind of have a video record of them in addition to a written record. I've started a new list that lists the unhauled books. So anyway, so that's basically what's going on. So next week, I think I might do, depending how tomorrow turns out. Obviously, there is a chance that I will, as I mentioned earlier, be going to a bookstore. Finally, the first time in years since I will physically have gone to a bookstore. I just don't know whether it will be because because two libraries near me are doing book sales. The Friends of the Library are doing their massive yearly sale this weekend that I kind of would like to go to. Also, the local library is doing a book sale. Why they're doing it on the same day as major one, I don't know. But they've done it before. I also would like to try to go to Fable, the independent bookstore in Waco, which I've never gone to. I've just bought 3 books online from them. Also would like to go to Barnes & Noble, which I haven't gone to in like nearly 6 years. It's well past time I revisit them. Do a special video for Steve. I would also like to go to the 2 used bookstores, Golden's and Brazos. So, but I think I'd possibly only be able to go to one, so I don't quite know where I would go and how many books I could pick up. But I might do like a special book haul for that, and then everything else I bring in, just wait until the end of November to do. So I think my book hauls are going to go back to being monthly because as much fun as titling some of the like smaller book hauls are. I think I much prefer like that one long monthly book haul. Even if November book haul, December book haul isn't nearly as much fun as book haul, The Return of William Carlos Williams. So anyway, but yeah, so anyway, and then on Tuesday there will be some tag videos because there's a few tag videos that have come out that I want to do. Wednesday, Thursday, not entirely sure what videos I would want to do. And then of course on Friday there will be weekly reads. So until I see you next week with possibly a birthday book haul. Thank you, BookTube. Have a great afternoon and evening and weekend, and stay safe.